has a pattern of power that is persisting. Since Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999, its leaders have repeatedly traded accountability for arrogance, leaving a trail of corruption, violence, and humiliation, from rigged elections that cost lives to cabinet ministers flaunting luxury cars and poverty. And the rot is systemic. This is not just a failure of governance, it's a betrayal of a people's trust. Senators slapping citizens, lawmakers threatening Uber drivers, and so on. As Nigeria teeters between progress and collapse, one question looms: will its elite ever learn the cost of dignity? This is the Eastern Eye. I am Alex Obodo. Welcome to the Eastern Eye, a program that x-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. Joining me tonight is Honorable Dr. Nick Obi Ozonsi. He is a Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you so much, Honorable Ozonsi,
Alex,
for joining us on the Eastern Eye. It does appear that Nigeria is a gift that keeps giving. Now, if you throw your mind back, you will remember that a certain senator slapped a sales girl in a shop in Abuja. It's not up to 6 years ago. I mean, that happened. There was also an incident where a House of Reps member was threatening an Uber driver. And then yesterday, we are seeing that a minister of the Federal Republic had to altercate, basically, with an officer of the Nigerian Navy. So let's take a look at this. What is the pattern that you've seen? Let's start with that's it on our screen. The young man, Yarima, stood his ground respectfully from all accounts now, but he kept hearing things like, you are stupid, you are foolish, you are stupid, keep quiet. And he gently responded, I am not, I am not, I am not, I have integrity. Let's have your thoughts about that development before we delve into a few other things.
The situation that prompted that altercations between the FCT minister and the young naval officer is beyond, I think, is beyond what was displayed by social medias and, of course, some writers. The young man, I respect him for being resolute. I respect him for being respectful. But then, the people or the office that sent him to that place, I think they didn't do their homework. Because if they have done their homework, the minister wouldn't even be there. I'm sure there have been a lot of exchange of correspondences between the office of the FCT minister and the retired naval officer who was said to be the owner of the property. The young man acted based on directive to protect the property, and they even prevent people from invading the place or intruding into the property. I respect the young man. The FCT minister on his own side saw reasons to come there because his staff, as what I learned, was prevented from having access to the property. And in his usual manner, he's always at the forefront. He's not the kind of minister that gives instructions and sits in the office. I think that was what actually made the minister to be there. Even when he was challenging the boy, telling me you're foolish, talking to me and whatever. Yes, he said what he's supposed to say, but then
Was he supposed to throw insults
I am
at the
coming.
young man?
The young man had a restraint, and he didn't respond apart from saying, "I'm not foolish." So being foolish, if you go to the dictionary to define it, it could be being foolish that he doesn't understand his work for that day. It doesn't mean that a young man is an empty-handed, an empty brain young man. But based on the scenario, based on the what is happening on ground, the minister is seeing the young man as not, knowing what is on the ground concerning himself visiting the point. Secondly, the young man is acting on his boss's instruction. Yes, Onke is acting as the minister, should I call it governor of FCT. That should have been the reason why there should be a challenge that will lead to insults at that spot. Because I'm sure that the ministry have written, from what I heard several times, to the owner of the property to come and prove the ownership. But being a military man, for several times, he does not want to go to the federal ministry or to the federal capital territory to actually prove ownerships, or even if ownership, to prove that the annual payments or whatever payment that have been needed for their place, that he has done that. So there is a communication gap, and that gap is between the owner of the property and the FCT ministry or minister. So I don't blame the young soldier. The young soldier acted on instruction. And as a lieutenant, he actually wanted to prove that the authority or the order given to him to protect that property, that he maintains it. So the person I am blaming is the owner of the property, who could not on his own take time, or even his lawyer, if he cannot have time, to go and ratify whatever thing that the ministry needed from him. If that was done, these altercations won't have come out. And the minister looking at a young officer himself also being the FCT minister, working under the president, he's not acting, yes, Onwike was not acting on his own. He's acting as the FCT minister who was appointed by the president. The young man also is acting based on the directive from his boss. And if he has failed to maintain his ground, I think they have given him some measure of discipline, or see him as a young officer that cannot stand his ground. So I think the issue is, is dicey.
All right. There's just something I want to point out.
Okay.
Being an appointee of the president, or as you put it, the governor of the FCT, does it make every utterance you make and everything you do correct? Because the assumption is that Nyesom Wike is correct. Each time he goes out, anything he says to people should be taken. Is that what this is about?
We have individual reactions to issues. Nyesom Wike, I've known him before even he became the governor of Rivers State. He hates intimidation. He hates unnecessary challenges, especially when he's working based on his duty as a minister. So I wouldn't say he overreacted, but there are certain decorums in anything that has to do with public. By right, the minister is not supposed to call the boy a fool, as we see on the screen. But I think it is a reaction when he was prevented from having access to that property. Although I later learned that the chief of naval staff, or the chief of army staff, called him, and he respected the call. That was what actually made the matter to lie low, pending what next. As far as I'm concerned, I know that there are some other people who are in the military who does not have authentic documents, or who have not paid the FCT for a long time, and the FCT decided to revoke their property based on the fact that they have violated the laid-down rules governing properties in FCT. So the Naval Chief of Staff should go to the FCT and they discuss with the appropriate authority than using his position as a military man to give instruction to his subordinates not to allow the FCT minister to come in. It's just like the NEPA. When NEPA comes to check some compounds, it's not right for maybe a military man or whoever that is highly placed to prevent the NEPA people from gaining access to their compound to assess their light bills or whatever thing they need to do. So I think on the side of that naval chief, of the retired naval chief of staff that owned that place, or the naval officer that owned it, I think he didn't act well using his position to stop the FCT staff that warranted the minister to be there by himself. That's a loophole which needed to be corrected. If I'm an FCT, I will stand before the owner of that property. I will tell him that you are using your position to intimidate civilians who are staff of the FCT, and also using your officer to stop the FCT from getting access to the said property. So even though the FCT minister seemed to have overreacted, but the right thing ought to have been done, starting from the man who owns the property.
Okay, I mean, we already established that, but I'm sure you saw that the Chief of Defense Staff issued a statement standing by the young officer and his conduct. I'm sure you have seen that too, because reviewing what had happened, if you have someone who was given an instruction by someone senior, and then someone else comes to, bully him out of that particular order, he was standing his ground. I think you understand the military hierarchy. That's what would the young officer Yarima have done other than what he did yesterday?
Well, I was sometimes in that group of military. There's something we call military precision, and obey the last order. The young man, I didn't see him committing any offense. He has been given instruction. And the military, if you are given instruction and you fail that instruction, you'll be disciplined. So the young man is maintaining his position as a young officer, and is also obeying the order from the officer that gave him the authority to protect that property. So it has always been like that. It's not even just about what happened between the young man and the FCT. There are some times when even police come to make arrest, where you have soldiers. The soldiers will say no, that they have not gotten instruction from their boss, or they had instruction that they should not release anybody. So it's like that. And that calls for collaborations and synergy between all the militaries and paramilitaries in Nigeria. Look at what happened in Anambra State, where some officers were shot, some police officers were shot by soldiers. Who knows from where they got the instruction or where they got the order? But because there's no collaborations, there's no synergy, both in the military and the paramilitary. That is why you see some of these things happening. So the man who made statement, the Chief of Defense Staff, by right and by his profession, is supposed to say what he has said. Even if that officer is wrong, he cannot come to the media and said that the young officer committed any offense. There has always been method of military discipline inside the barrack, and they don't easily make public statements in issues that has to do with their staff. It's like that in the military. Assuming somebody was gone down there, they will still defend the person that gone down, but internally there could be some internal discipline, drawing the soldier's ear or the police ear, saying, look at this way, he didn't do it this way, it's supposed to be this way. But what made the young man to have the guts to stand his ground is based on instruction given to him. Just a lieutenant. Are you getting me? A lieutenant is just some of the young men who came out from defense academies, and maybe after sub-lieutenant, you get a lieutenant. So I think he's trying to maintain his position because he may not be given any other responsible assignment if he has failed to stand his ground on what happened between him and the Minister of FCT. So I think that's what happened.
All right, we'll take a break here on the Eastern Eye. When we return, we'll take a look at some other issues around public officers who, at one time or the other, if you like, overstep their bounds and their authority. Stay with us. Back to the Eastern Eye here on Afia TV, a program that x-rays the political, social, and economic developments around us. I still have Honorable Dr. Obi Ozonsi here with me. So, Senator Elijah Abbo slapped a sales girl in a shop in Abuja. And, you know, it took him, let me say that it took him around the world because I think he almost lost. You know, of course, eventually that culminated in him not returning to the Senate because he kept crying and saying that this happened to him and that happened to him. But a lot of people pointed to the fact that slapping that sales girl in that shop led to his downfall politically. Let's take a look at how these things affect political office holders who overstep their bounds.
The young man that slapped that girl, I think he may have been doing such a thing and be getting free out of it. And Nigerians knew that he stepped on that girl's fundamental human right. He also used his position to suppress even justice when people were crying for justice on behalf of that girl. If Nigerians were to be a country like UK or US, by now we must have been cooling down in the prisons. Under no circumstance must somebody at that level raise his hand up to slap a small girl because you are in a good elected position, you have the money, you have the orderlies, and you have everything. You overstep bounds. And such people should not be re-elected into offices. I think people in his senatorial zone, they reacted to that, his action. And that was why he was not voted the second time. Even God that is in heaven was not happy with what he did. Nigerians, social media actors condemned it. But I was surprised at the National Assembly. They not take it up and even suspend him for that singular attitude, because whatever thing he do, it will be assumed that all of them in the National Assembly are equally doing the same thing. So, but because esprit de corps, they are colleagues, they could not come out openly to condemn what he did, and that will go a long way to let Nigerians know what have been happening in other sectors, not even in the Senate or in the House of Representatives. There are people that actually oversteps their bound, infringing on people's fundamental human rights, and of course, taking the law into their hands. So, I condemn in total, along with other Nigerians, what that young officer did. But God has paid him back, but not allow him to return in that seat. Because if I return, he would have done something more funny than what has already done. So I think, in totality, I condemn that attitude.
All right. Honorable Ikweche, who threatened an Uber driver, actually had a quick reaction on his. He apologized. And even the Uber driver also came out to say that, of course, this is not, that they are good. I mean, it was resolved as fast as possible, which was commendable in his case. But let's go back to the issue of in Abuja and take a look at what is going on with land allocations in the FCT. With your experience and as someone who's been in public service, do you think that there's something fundamentally wrong with land administration in the FCT? As it is, because that's what the minister keeps talking about, that there are people with irregular allocations that need to regularize them.
The issue of land allocations in Abuja have been a very, very serious issue. Some people swept the reality under the carpet. But Nyesom Wike, the minister, is not a pushover. There are many people who acquire lands in FCT and they were given time frame to develop the plots. But for over 20, 30 years, some people have not gone to develop this plot as against the condition of allocation. Count it one. There are people also who have not paid their annual payments to the FCT to enable the FCC also to be getting their own revenues. There are people also that have documents that have not been fully ratified, and they continue to parade themselves as the owners of lands in FCT. It can only take the person of Nyesom Wike or the people like Nyesom Wike to ravel some of these anomalies and then stand their ground and say, no, the right thing must be done. If you check the people whose lands have been, revoked, they knew that they have defaulted. There was even time frame when they gave people in FCT to come over and then authenticate their documents. Authenticate their document, their letter of allocations, the CFO, MO, another document, even the annual payments. Some people, because of their positions, they refuse to go and ratify these things. I want to tell you, Alex, that Nyesom Wike has not gone into a land that has proper documents, the land that obeys the things that are stipulated, that is the condition of allocation. Nyesom Wike, because I was in Abuja and I sampled the opinion of people, Nyesom Wike is only trying to invoke the law as it was supposed to be in FCT, which some other persons, because of their relationship and kickbacks, they were not able to do it. So I think with Nyesom Wike, government has recovered some land. Sometimes they give people one plot, they go and take 1.5. And when you look at their drawing, it will be showing that it's just a plot. So it takes people like, in fact, the president should give Nyesom Wike an award. I'm sorry to say this. Nyesom Wike deserves an award for unraveling some of the anomalies and some of the illegal allocations that was made in FCT.
There's another leg to the discussion. Yes. Some people are saying that some interests are angry that for the first time since the creation of the FCT, you now have a minister from the south. But all this while, it has always been ministers from the north who are administering the FCT. And that all hell has been let loose because someone from the south is now FCT minister. Do you think that maybe this is also part of the issue?
Talking about the FCT and the Southern are coming to be a minister, it means the people don't know what is stipulated in in Nigerian constitution. Are you getting me? A minister can come from anywhere. No place that is meant, no position in the ministerial position that is meant for a southerner and a northerner. The Federal Character Commission stipulates this. It can go to the west, it can go to the east, it can go to the south. But there are people who feel that this is their father's bread. And for that reason, they can be doing whatever thing they like there. So I want to thank Amadi Tinubu for, his diversities in distributing ministerial positions to different parts of the country, not minding who was there before the other person came. Recently, an air chief of staff was appointed from Enugu State, which has never happened since the history of Nigeria. That shows a true picture of what the federal character should look like. And not every time it must be Kaduna, Kano, Sokoto, or just that zone. It should be going around. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. You come to, it's just like when people say that the Ministry of Agriculture belongs to the North. They don't like shifting it. It can go anywhere. So anybody that is feeling that somebody from the South has become the FCT minister should disabuse his mind in the name of maintaining the federal character. Nobody in the whole of this country can say that he has ever benefited, especially some of these big notchers. If you go to some of these universities, you see some of them as pro-chancellors from different countries. You go to NNPC, there was a time when about 6 chain directors were from the North. The Southerners were not complaining. The deputy directors and some of their offices they give them, they manage it. You go to the maritime, it was the same people. But things keep changing, and due to federal character stipulations, people continue to move from one parastatal or one ministry to the other, which that's how it's supposed to be in the name of one Nigeria, except if you have a different Nigeria for the South and a different Nigeria for the North.
Well, that's a question we are asking. Is there a different constitution for everyone in Nigeria? Some people think that, especially in the implementation, that there is. But do you believe that this is something that needs to be looked at? Is it possible that, looking at what has happened, that in appointing FCT ministers, care should be taken not to allow the ministers of the FCT to come from a particular section of the country to the point that they start feeling entitled to that position?
You're just repeating the question. You want me to answer what I answered?
Because the reason is, if you continue to think that the position of the FCT minister must go to the North, it doesn't all go well, does it?
It doesn't all go well. The FCT is the center of Nigeria, and every Nigerian should have a taste. Every state or every zone in Nigeria should have a taste of that ministerial position. This will go a long way also to making changes. Because if I'm to be the minister and I remain there, first tenure, another government come, I'm there, another government come, my younger brother or my stateman, it means that there are things that we cannot put in place. There are corrections we cannot make because of our relationship with our brothers, or maybe because of interest. So if you look at the FCT also, you find out that majority of development in the FCT come from the South. Southeast, South, and whatever. There were yes, so there was this discrepancies in insisting that somebody from the North should remain in the FCT. It's not called for. So FCT is for Nigeria, and Nigeria is for FCT. And every zone in Nigeria is entitled, depending on the prerogative of the president, on who goes to the FCT. If the president is biased, we have appointed a Yoruba man to go and be the minister of FCT. Look at Erufai, look at the ambats. In chain, there were about 3 from the North. And nobody was complaining, and Nigeria was going on. So how comes now that Nyesom Wike was appointed as the FCT minister, and some people are raising eyebrows? based on also the things he have been unraveling, showing a lot of criminalities in allocations, and even allocations made people were not, obeying the allocation, the contents of the allocation, or even paying the small annual payment to the FCT. Some people took it as their backyard. They can go there, collect vegetables, do whatever thing they like. No, it's not like that. So I want to thumb up for Nyesom Wike for at least trying to make Nigerians feel that FCT belongs to Nigerians and Nigerians should do the right thing in FCT.
I have to thank you so much, Honorable Dr. Nick Obi Ozonsi, as always, for your contributions and submissions here on the Eastern Eye. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
And that's the Eastern Eye for tonight. We'll be here tomorrow same time for another episode of the program. My name is Alex Obodo. Good night.